The manuscript paintings traditions. The third khanda of the Vishnu Dharmottara Purana, a 5th century text, has a chapter, Chitra Sutra, which should be considered as a source book of Indian art in general and painting specifically. It talks about the art of image making called Pratima Lakshana, which are canons of painting. The Khanda also deals with the techniques, tools, materials, surface wall, perception, perspective, and three dimensionality of human figure. Different limbs of painting, such as Rupa Bheda or looks and appearance, Pramana or measurements, proportions and structures, Bhava or expression, Lavanya Yojana or aesthetic compositions, Sadrishya or resemblance, and Varnik Bhanga or use of brush and color have been explained at length with examples. Each of these have many subsections. These canons were read and understood by artists and followed through centuries, thus becoming the basis of all styles and schools of painting in India. Painting from the medieval period have earned a generic name, for example, miniature painting owing to the relative smaller size. These miniature paintings were handheld and observed from a closer distance due to minuity. The walls of patrons mansions were often decorated with murals paintings, hence these miniatures were never intended to be put on the walls. The last section of paintings are appropriately referred to as manuscript illustration, as they are pictorial translation of poetic words from epics and various canonical literary, bardic, or music texts. Manuscript with verse handwritten on the topmost portion of the painting in clearly demarcated box-like space. Sometimes one finds the text not in the front but behind the work of art. Manuscripts illustrations were methodically concealed in thematic sets, each set comprising several loose paintings or folio. Each folio of painting has its corresponding text. Inscribed either in the demarcated space on the upper portion of the painting or on its reverse. According one should have set of Ramayana painting, a Bhagavata Purana or Mahabharata or Gita Govinda, Ragmal, etc. Each set was wrapped up in a piece of cloth and stored as bundle in the library of the kings or patrons. Sarva Ka Pratika Masutra Purni of Vijay Simha. Meva written by Kamalachandra, 1216 collection, Boston. Most important folio page of the set would be colophon page, which would furnish information regarding the name of the patron artist or scribes, date and place of commission or completion of the work, and other such important details. However, due to ravage of time, the colophon page have often gone missing, compelling scholars to attribute missing particular on the basis of their expertise. Being fragile piece of artworks, paintings were susceptible to mishandlings, fire, humidity, and other such calamities and disasters. Considered as precious and valuable artifacts and also being portable paintings were often gifted painted to princesses as the part of their dowries when they got married. They were also exchanged as a gift between kings and courtiers as act of gratitude and traded to distant places. Painting also traveled to remote regions with moving pilgrims, monks, adventurers, traders, and professional narrators. Thus, for instance, one would find Mewar painting with the Bundi kings and vice versa. Reconstruction, the history of painting, is phenomenal task. There are fewer dated sets compared to undated ones, where arranged chronologically they are vacuous spell in between where one can only speculate the kind of paintings activity that would be thrived. To make matter worse, the loose folio are no longer part of their original sets and are dispersed in various museums and private collections, which keep surface and say, keep surfacing time and again, challenging the constitute timeline and compelling scholars to modify and redefine the chronology in history. In this light, undated sets of painting are ascribed a hypothetical time frame on the basis of style and other circumstantial evidence. Western Indian schools of painting. Painting activities that thrive largely in western part of Indian constitute the Western Indian School of Painting, with Gujarat as its most prominent center in southern part of Rajasthan and western part of central India as other centers, with presence of some significant ports. In Gujarat, there are a network of trade routes passing through this area, especially making merchant traders and local chieftains powerful patron of our due to the wealth and prosperity that trading brought in. The merchant class, largely represented by Jain community, led to become significant patron of the theme related to Jainism. Hence, part of the Western Indian school that depict Jain themes and manuscript is known as Jain schools of paintings. Jain painting also received impetus because the concept of Shastra, Shastradan, donation of book, gained favor amid the community, where the act of donating illustrated painting to the monastery library called Bhandaras repositories was glorified as a gesture of charity, righteousness, and gratitude. Birth of Mahavira Kalpasutra, 15th century Jain Bhandara, Rajasthan. Among the most widely illustrated canonical texts in the Jain tradition is Kalpasutra. It has sections reciting events from the lives of 24 Tirthankars, from their birth of salvation, that provide biographical narrative for artists to paint. The five key incidents roughly elaborated as conception, birth, renunciation, enlightenment, and first sermon are salvation from the times of Tirthankar and events leading to and around this comprise most part of the Kalpa Sutra. Mahavir mother Trishala dreams about 14 objectives. When she conceived Mahavir, they are an elephant, a bull, a tiger goddess, Shri, a kalash, a palanquin, a pond, a rivulet, fire, banners, garland, heap of jewelry, the sun, and heap of jewels, the sun and the moon. She consulted an astrologer to interpret her dreams and was told that she will give birth to a son who will either become sovereign kings or a great saint and teachers. Trushala, 14 dreams. Kalpasutra, Western India. Other popularly painted texts are Kalakacharya Katha and Sangrahini Sutra, among others. Kalakacharya Katha narrates the story of Acharya Kalaka, who is on a mission to rescue his abducted sister, a Jain nun, from an evil king. They recount various thrilling episodes and adventures of Kalaka, such as him scouring the land to locate his missing sister, demonstrating his magical power, forging alliance with other kings, and lastly battling the evil kings. Uttara Sutra contained the teaching of Mahavir that prescribed the code of conduct that monks should follow, and Sangrahini Sutra is cosmological text composed in the 12th century and that comprise a concept about the structure of the universe and mapping of space. Jain got this text written in numerous copies. They are either sparsely or profusely illustrated with paintings, hence one typical folio of painting would be divided into sections with allocated space for writing the text and paintings. Kalaka is seen on the lower right and his captive sister is depicted towards the top left. The donkey with magical powers weaving arrow at Kalaka army of kings. The evil king presides from the inside and circular fort. Kalakacharya Katha 1497 N.C. Mehta Collection Ahmedabad, Gujarat. What is written? A small hole in the center was created for a string to pass through to fasten the pages together that were in turn protected with wooden cover called patlis placed on top and bottom of the manuscript. Early Jain paintings were traditionally done on palm leaves before paper was introduced in the 14th century, and the earliest surviving palm leaf manuscript from the western part of India dates back to the 11th century. The palm leaves were delicately treated before painting, and the writing was etched upon the leaves with a sharp calligraphy device. Planetary bodies and the distance between them. Sangrahini Sutra, 17th century N.C. Mehta Collection, Ahmedabad, Gujarat. Owing to the narrow and small space in the palm leaves, painting initially was largely continued to patlis that were liberally painted in bright color with images of gods and goddesses incident from the lives of Jain Acharya. Jain painting developed a schematic and simplified language for painting, often dividing the space into sections to accommodate different incidents. One observed a penchant for bright color and a deep interest in the depiction of textile pattern. Thin, wiry lines predominate the composition, and three-dimensionality of the face is attempted, with an addition of a further eye architectural elements revealing the sultanate domes and pointed arches indicate the political presence of sultan in the region of Gujarat, Mandu, Jaunpur and Patna, among other where this painting were done. Several indigenous features along cultural lifestyle is visible through textile canopies and wall hangings, furniture, costume, utilitarian things, etc. Features of the landscapes are only suggestive and usually not detailed. A period of roughly 100 years, from about 1350 to 1450, appeared to be the most creative phase for Jain painting. One observed a shift from severely iconic representation to inclusion of attractive depicted aspects of landscape figure in dance, pose, musical playing instruments, which are painted in the margin of the folio around the main episodes. Indra praising Dev Sanopado, Kalpasutra, Gujarat, about 1475 collection, Boston. These paintings were lavishly painted with profuse use of gold, lapis lazuli, indicating the wealth and social status of their patrons. Over and above these canonical texts, Tripathas, mandalas, and secular non-canonical stories were also painted for the Jain community. Besides Jain community that were patronized by rich merchant and dedicated devotee, a parallel tradition of painting existed among feudal lords, wealth citizens, and other such people during the late 15th 16th century that encompasses illustration of secular, religious, and literary themes. This style represents the indigenous tradition of painting before the formation of court style of Rajasthan and intermingling of Mughal influence. A large group of work of the same period portraying Hindu and Jain subjects such as Mahapurana, Chaurapanchashika, and Aryanka Parvan of the Mahabharata, Bhagavata Purana, Gita Govinda, and few other are representative of this indigenous style of painting. This phase and style is also casually referred to as pre-Mughal or pre-Rajasthani, which is largely synonym with the term indigenous styles. Chaurapanchasika, Gujarat, 15th century, N.C. Mehta collection, Ahmedabad, Gujarat, Mitra Bhagavata Purana, 1550. The distinctive stylish feature evolved during this phase and with this group of painting. A particular figure type evolved with an interest in depiction, transference of fabrics, ordinaries, ballooned over the head of heroines and wrapped with stiff and standing edges. Architecture were contextual but suggestive. Different kind of hatching evolved for depiction of water bodies and particular way of representing the horizon, flora, fauna, etc. got formalized. All these form elements make their way in the 7th century early Rajasthan painting. With several regions in the northeast and west coming under the rule of Sultanate dynasty from the Central Asia. After the late 12th century, another strain of the influence. Persian, Turkish, and Afghan percolated into mainland and appeared in the painting patronized by Sultan of Malwa, Gujarat, Jaunpur, and such other centers, with a few Central Asia artists in this school, working with local artists and intermingling of Persian feature and indigenous style led to the emergence of another style that is referred to as Sultanate schools of paintings. This represents more of a style than school that has a hybrid Persian influence. Indigenous pictorial style, which is an interesting coming together of indigenous feature as described earlier and Persian elements such as color, palette, physiognomy, simplified landscape with decorative detail, etc. Nimat Nama books of delicacy, the most representative example of these schools, was painted at Mandu during the reign of Nasir Shah Khalji 1500 to 1510 Common Era. It is a book of recipe with a section on hunting and also has method for preparation of medicine, cosmetics, perfume and direction on their use. Nimatnama, Mandu 1550, British Library, London. stories with undertone of Sufi idea were also gaining favors. Lauren Chanda paintings are example of this genre. Pala schools of painting, like the Jain text and painting, the illustrated manuscripts of Pala of eastern India also found earliest example of painting from the 11th and 12th centuries. Pala periods 750 Common Era to the mid 20th century saw the last general phase of Buddhism's art in India. Monasteries such as Nalanda and Ikamshila were great center of Buddhist learnings, and art and numerous manuscripts were illustrated here with the Buddhist themes. An image of Vajrayana Buddhist deities on palm leaves. These centers also had workshops for casting of bronze image. Students and pilgrims all over Southeast Asian came to this monastery for education and religious instruction and took back specimen of Pala Buddhist art in the form of bronze and illustrated manuscripts. Lokeshwara Ashtashasrika Prajna Paramita Pala 1050 to National Museum, New Delhi. This practice enabled the dispersal of Pala art to places such as Nepal, Tibet, Burma, Sri Lanka, and Java. Unlike the tense line of Jain painting, a flowing and sinus line in subdued color tone characteristics Pala painting. Like at Ajanta, the sculptural style of Pala monastery and painterly image have similar language. A fine example Pala Buddhist palm leaf manuscript is Ashta Sahasrika Prajnam Paramita Bodleian Library Oxford or The Perfection of Wisdom written in 8,000 lines. Written at the monastery of Nalanda in the 15th century, 15th year of the reign of Pala, King Ram Pala. In the last quarter of the 11th century, it has 6 pages of illustration and wooden cover painted on both sides. Pala dynasty weakened with the coming of Muslim invader. Pala art came to an end in the first half of the 13th century when a Muslim invader attacked and caused destruction to the monasteries. What are the manuscript paintings? Name 2 places where tradition of manuscript painting was prevalent. Take a chapter from any one of one language textbooks and make an illustration folio. We select a text and remove 5 pages.